Ever heard the phrase, "there's nothing new under the sun"? It's a wise adage that dates back centuries and often referenced in religious and spiritual circles. In this video, we're going to dive deep into how that phrase can assist in helping you make sense of the uncertain events that are shaping your personal world and all of humanity as we know it. Is this a sign of the end of times or something more practical? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone that you love and care about, because you're about to hear this explained in a way that you've never heard before. We are so quick to call it quits. Everything is so instant. Instant seems to get mistaken for convenience. Convenience is often mistaken for comfort. Comfort is often mistaken for complacency. Complacency is the inability to feel comfort in the middle of uncertainty. Comfort is ease, and it inspires feelings of safety and security because we all desire to feel safe, yeah? We all desire to feel secure. But is it at the expense of our clarity or our peace? We often forget to remember, or perhaps we lack the awareness, that this human experience is a delayed experience. Nothing here is as instant as it seems. It is so delayed here that each moment the sun hits each side of the earth, we see it 8 minutes later, depending on which side of the earth time zone that we're in. In other words, the instantaneous moment the sun rises, our experience of it is 8 minutes later. This also means that when it comes to the manifestation process, the moment we experience the physical evidence of something, it comes with a delay. It may or may not be 8 minutes, but it would be a delay nonetheless. The delay occurs between receiving the thought or the feeling of something all the way up to the moment it becomes physically realized. Then the cycle repeats itself. With enough momentum in the cycle, it becomes a pattern. Our human experience is simply the result of patterns that have gained momentum. Anything that has gained momentum is now a habit and automated. For example, someone would put their car key into the ignition and, out of habit, twist the key to activate the engine, and it automatically turns on. Depending on the car model, though, all it may take is the press of a button. If this process was not automatic, there would be pauses, glitches, and breaks between each step toward the engine turning on. Then, if the engine does not automatically turn on, then there would have to be adjustments made to the mechanics involved to ensure everything is connected thoroughly for the turn of the key or the press of the button to then activate everything automatically. These patterns work the same with our human mechanics, and each pattern affects each aspect of our existence here. These aspects have been compartmentalized into past, present, and future aspects. The past aspects consist of any moment we experience behind the present. We tend to limit the past to our personal childhood and adolescence, but the past is every timeline associated with our childhood and the karmic energies from timelines past, present, and future connected to that. The future aspect consists of any moment we experience ahead of the present. In other words, the future is not as uncertain and mysterious as it may have been perceived to be. To a very specific aspect of ourselves, the future is the past. The future has been lived, is being lived, and will be lived. Hence, there's nothing new under the sun. This adage to me describes the aspects of the self. There's no new past, no new present, there's no new future, simply different ways of existing within the mechanics of our human existence. However, everything is always happening in the present moment. In the present moment, we get to look at the past aspects of ourselves as we know them to get clear with how we desire to show up in the present moments to come or the future. The past can be as short as the end of this statement. You get to rewind back to the previous statement to check in with how you may have felt in the moment of hearing me say what I said. If the way you felt was unpleasant, then you get to change that to something pleasant in this right now present moment. This will allow you to expand that pleasant feeling into the next present moment, which would be a future moment. In the event you do not change, then the future moment will repeat that unpleasant feeling. This will be a challenge to do when there are many patterns of unpleasant feelings that have gained momentum throughout your life. This is usually when you get invited to go back into your long past, your childhood. There are roughly 100 years in our modern day human generational cycle. Please keep in mind that this is not a fixed number based on mathematical global statistics. This is based on the human lifespan relative to recorded American history, which would be roughly 80 years. Because most outside countries have adopted many of the modern day American economic, social practices and advancements, they have also adopted certain of America's historical patterns as well. And because of those patterns, we can identify and document what parts of our history has repeated itself, what is repeating itself, and ultimately predict what has the potential to be repeated. Each generational cycle contains 4 life stages: childhood, young adulthood, midlife adulthood, senior adulthood. Every 2 decades, these life stages turn over into the next, and a new one emerges. Each life stage that turns over presents us with an opportunity to resolve our mental and emotional attachment to the traumas in the stages before, to hold space for more healing and evolution in the current stage, as well as in the stages ahead. When we do not do this willingly and intentionally, we suffer through these changing stages, and it affects each generational cycle. In other words, we cannot be free from the weight of our trauma by suppressing and avoiding it. Therefore, anything that looks new, healed, and resolved would simply be old, unresolved trauma in disguise, and each emerging life stage becomes sensitive to the weight of it. Therefore, we will never get rid of trauma. No one person can clean up an entire generational line of it. One person can, however, clean up their personal response to it by implementing self-care practices to resolve the mental and emotional attachments to it. This then sends an energetic pulse out to others to inspire them to do the same. This builds the momentum of showing up in an empowered, healed way. With little or no effort, we see more collective evidence of a benevolent way. Unchecked survival mode patterns often has us too focused on our mortality. Our mainstream society often overuses the phrase life is short without realizing how disempowering that phrase really is. Life is eternal. The human experience is short. Because of this limited, disempowered awareness, there are many conflicting views about what happens after we exit this experience. For example, the view about the afterlife. Does the afterlife really exist? Many people believe that heaven and hell, paradise and purgatory are literal places. Many others believe that they are metaphorical states of mind, and many others believe they don't exist at all. What do I personally believe? I believe all those beliefs are valid. I talk in detail about these philosophies in my book, To Heal or Not to Heal, but here we will discuss them in relation to navigating survival mode patterns. Heaven and hell are merely earthly philosophies about life beyond the physical human experience. The ongoing conflict and confusion are in proving or disproving these philosophies, and so it's easy to get sucked into the stories of eternal judgment that are attached to them. Eternal judgment is in direct conflict with one of the major insights of our universe, and that is we are all one. We are all connected to each other. We are all connected to the same unconditional loving energy source. Eternal judgment makes that belief null and void because it divides, it separates. It commands that some go to heaven or paradise and others go to hell or purgatory. The conflict and confusion intensify because there's so many different stories and reasons for the division. While none of this can be proven nor disproven, being spiritual is simply getting clear with our humanness. Regardless of how anyone personally identifies themselves, we are all spiritual. Be very careful here, because despite how comfortable and familiar we may be with organized religious, faith-based definitions and constructs, they're full of contradictions. Yet, we've been trained to accept these contradictions as life's mysteries. Contradictions cause confusion. There is no mystery in that. Confusion will always be unclear. And the fear we knowingly and unknowingly project into that keeps us away from being clear. It's a psychological tactic for easy manipulation. If any of us that have ever dealt with any others with extreme narcissistic traits, then we may be familiar with the term gaslighting. Organized religious constructs do a lot of gaslighting. Gaslighting twists logical narratives. It dismisses any thoughts or philosophies that are opposite of their preferred narrative. It denies things and makes us question another major insight of our universe, and that is the natural art of cause and effect. Our own memory and even our own feelings become questionable. It amplifies confusion and makes us feel undeserving and unworthy, while at the same time offering us an ultimate solution, and suddenly dominance and control are restored. And what is even more challenging is that many are doing this unconsciously. The information presented in this dialogue does not claim to have all the right answers, but having a clear and general understanding of as much as possible is the intention here. Personally, honoring and respecting others' differences has allowed me to honor and respect what makes me different. That has not always been the easiest thing to do, and like many of us, we get caught in the web of all the details. Our humanness, for some of us, has been put at the mercy of these philosophies of heaven and hell, or paradise and purgatory, or even the mainstream blue pill and red pill metaphor for many generations. We get so focused on the vision of a future event that it pulls us out of the present moment. We are only responsible for the here and now. But we practice right behaviors as we may have been trained to perceive them because we fear eternal damnation. But then we get insecure of our right behaviors because we may get left behind on Judgment Day. And so we work hard at making sure that we do it right while ensuring our loved ones do it right, so we all have a fighting chance to make it into that eternal kingdom. If that sounds like exhausting work, then it is. And to not even be sure we'll make it in? No wonder many of us are so panicky, scary, and living in survival mode. Let us face this observation. Everyone has a different interpretation of what heaven and hell are. This may be triggering, but for gentle clarity, having religious references, a backstory, a present-day story, and a future story, or even our own personal accounts of the afterlife are irrelevant in a conversation such as this. It is the reason many of us get lost in the details. Perhaps we've personified the philosophies of our ultimate eternal destination to not only give us a sense of purpose on this earth, but to give clarity to our thoughts and feelings as we navigate our purpose here. Therefore, our psychological and emotional state plays a huge role in this. If we are to accept the fact that we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience, it would make sense to accept the scientific terminology that we are energetic, vibrational beings as well. They're the same non-physical aspects as spiritual, just different names. It's all energy in motion. These aspects are ever flowing, ever moving. There's no end to this. And what may seem like an end is merely the start of a continuation of it all. To view God as a judge in this makes this belief null and void as well, because it makes us look like human beings having a temporary spiritual experience here. So imagine if we were just here existing when our human body fades, we just disappear into forgettable nothingness. Therefore, feeling sad and depressed about our past, anxious and worried about a hopeless future, from that thought alone makes the most logical sense here. So where do we go when we leave this earthly plane? Who's overseeing this process, since God, according to this dialogue, isn't judging anybody? We return to the ever-flowing, spaceless space of absolute energy and unconditional love. It is not a humanized place, regardless of how you word it. For every action, there is an equal or an opposite reaction. In other words, everything carries a natural consequence, cause and effect. And consequences create energetic ripple effects throughout eternity. If we're paying close attention to our current way of life, we're dealing with the energetic ripple effects of the actions of many lives from the past. And it's neither good nor bad. It's just the results of actions seen and unseen. We label them good or bad based on our personal emotional connection to them. For example, if someone steals money from you, you'd feel hurt. But to the thief, that may have been a survival mode tactic, because perhaps they may have had a debt to pay and the pressure to pay it may have been unbearable. And so out of convenient desperation, they steal from you to feel some relief. This would now invite an act of observation rather than one of condemnation and judgment. But we compare objective observation to our subjective physical five senses, the things we see, smell, taste, touch, hear. Having to prove, punish, condemn, or even reward would be irrelevant in an objective observation. In a subjective context, that may be needed. Hence the reason we have humanized courtrooms and human codes of ethics. These codes of ethics are meant to evolve as we evolve. But because the collective consciousness has been so focused on judging and condemning, many of our ethical and moral codes cause suffering in our human evolution. However, the intention in any context is to live and evolve in unity, harmony, and togetherness and connectedness. How does that happen when we're in the middle of constant conflict and judgment? Listen, we will never get rid of judgment as we experience it here on earth. Just like we will never get rid of fear or doubt or anything disempowering. These things are meant to be integrated and balanced out in our individual humanness with love and compassion. Unconditional love is the essence of who we all really are. And experiencing fear, worry, and many other disempowering human conditions are gateways to eventually remembering who we really are. Unconditional love is the ultimate form of well-beingness. It is more of a state of being and less of a state of doing. What does well-being feel like? It feels like ease, fulfillment, contentment, neutrality. This means our triggers become less triggering. Our hyper-excitement becomes less hyper. Our human life is meant to be fun and adventurous. We are meant to explore with mindful intention what resonates passionately and truthfully no matter what hand we've been dealt. Judgment will have us thinking that life is tormenting, tricking, testing, manipulating, and punishing us. Compassion will have us believing and trusting that life is always happening for us, even when it doesn't feel good to us. It's all for the evolution and the improvement of the balance of us so that we can create harmony outside of us. Perhaps where there's judgment, that's where hell is. And where there's compassion, that's where heaven is. And perhaps the choice we make between the two depends on the one that's the most active within our patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior. Compassion sets us up to never be in a judgmental state longer than it takes for us to improve our balance and keep moving forward again in love. Judgment dismembers us from unconditional love, and compassion remembers us back to it. It's time to expand our awareness of our dismemberment and remember who we really are. No more wallowing in a lack of awareness. It's time to live through it boldly and unapologetically in this eternal right now moment. If we desire more kindness, give it. If we desire more peace, give it. If we desire more love, give it, and give it wholeheartedly, not just to others, but to ourselves most of all, so that it leaves a ripple effect, momentum of ease and positivity throughout all eternity. If you'd like personalized assistance in your journey, I'm a certified spiritual life coach. You can check out my online life coaching program, digital e-courses, and published books at the link in the description box below. I'm going to stop this stream of thought for right now, but if you'd like to stay connected, please subscribe, comment, like, and share this with someone you love and care about. In the meantime, in between time, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and make the best of this right now moment and the right now moments to come.